Have you ever wondered how to structure data in HTML? If so, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to talk about the HTML table element and how it's used to display tabular data. HTML tables are a versatile tool for organizing and presenting data in a structured and easily readable format. Imagine a spreadsheet or a grid where data is neatly arranged in rows and columns. That's basically what an HTML table is. The basic structure of an HTML table consists of a few key elements. The table itself is created using the table element. Each row in the table is defined by the table row or TR element. Within each row, we use the table header or thus element to define the headers and the table data or TD element to define the regular cells. Typically, the first row of the table is used to define the column headers, and the subsequent rows contain the actual data. But the structure of an HTML table doesn't stop there. There are additional elements that you can use to further customize your table. The thed element groups the header content in a table. The tbody element groups the body content, and the tfoot element groups the footer content. You can also add a caption to your table using the caption element. This can be particularly useful for providing additional context or explanation for your data. Here's an example of a table that includes these additional elements. It's a monthly sales report with a caption, headers grouped in the thed, data in the tbody, and a total in the tefoot. Remember, you can modify the structure and styling of your table to suit your specific needs. You can even use CSS to further enhance the appearance of your table. That's a basic introduction to HTML tables. Now let's dive deeper into how to create one. Creating a table in HTML is simpler than you might think. To start, we use the table element. This element is the cornerstone of any HTML table. It's like the canvas on which we'll paint our rows and columns of data. Next, we need to define our rows with the table row or TR element. You can think of each TR as a new line in your table, a fresh start, ready to be filled with data. Now, we're ready to start adding data to our rows. But first, we need to define our headers. Headers are important as they tell us what kind of data we can expect in our columns. We define them using the the or table header element. These reside within our TR element, and each the represents a column header. So we've got our table, we've got our rows, and we've defined our headers. Now it's time for the real meat and potatoes, the data itself. This is where the TD or table data element comes into play. Just like our headers, each TD lives within a .tr. However, instead of defining what kind of data we can expect, it represents the data itself. Now let's look at a basic example. We start with a table. Inside we have a TR to start our first row. Inside this row, we have the elements, defining our headers as header 1, header 2, and header 3. Our next TR starts a new row. This row contains 3 TD elements, each containing a piece of data. Row 1, cell 1A, row 1, cell 2, and row 1, cell 3. We can repeat this process to add as many rows as we need. But what if we want to spice things up a bit? Well, HTML tables have a few more tricks up their sleeve. We can group our header content with thed, our body content with tbody, and our footer content with tfoot. And if we're feeling particularly fancy, we can even add a caption with the caption element. And there you go. You've just created your first HTML table. Now that you've got a basic table, let's take it up a notch. Did you know you can enhance the organization and readability of your HTML tables with a few additional elements? Yes, indeed. Let's dive into some of these elements. Firstly, we have the thed element. This element is used to group the header content in a table. By wrapping the first row of your table, which usually contains the headers, inside a thed tag, you're telling the browser and anyone reading your code that this part of the table is the head. Next up, we have the tbody element. As you might guess, this is where the main body of your table goes. It's used to group the body content in a table, and it usually contains rows of data. By using the T-body element, you make your table more accessible and easier to style with CSS. Don't forget the T-foot element. This wraps up the footer content in a table, typically used for displaying totals or averages of the data in the table. One key thing to note is that despite being a footer, it's often a good practice to place the T-foot before the T-body in your markup. This ensures that if your table is quite long and takes a while to load, the user will see the table's foot data first. Lastly, we've got the caption element. This gives your table a title or a caption. It's a great way to provide a brief overview or explanation of what your table is all about. The caption tag should be inserted immediately after the table tag. Here's an interesting fact. Did you know that screen readers read the caption element first? This makes it a valuable tool for enhancing accessibility. So by using these elements, thread, T-body, T-foot, and caption, you can structure your HTML table in a way that not only makes it easier to understand and style, but also makes it more accessible to a wider range of users. With these elements, you can create more complex and structured tables. And that's what we're all about, isn't it? Making our data clear, accessible, and dare I say, beautiful. HTML gives you the flexibility to customize your tables to suit your needs. Now, let's delve into the details of how you add more rows and columns to your table. It's as simple as adding more element from the next row. These are just a few of the ways you can customize your HTML tables. There's a whole world of possibilities out there. Feel free to experiment and play around with different configurations to see what works best for your data. And remember, the key to mastering HTML tables is practice. The more you experiment and practice, the better you'll get at creating tables that are perfect for your needs. By mastering these techniques, you can create tables that are tailored to your specific needs. A table is more than just data, it's a part of your website's aesthetics. Now that we've built and customized our HTML table, it's time to make it visually appealing. Enter CSS, or cascading style sheets, the language that gives style to our HTML elements. Let's start with the basics. CSS allows us to change the color and font of our table. For instance, we could use the property color to change the text color and font family to change the typeface. We can even make our headers bold to make them stand out using the font weight property. The layout of our table can also be enhanced with CSS. We could add borders to our cells using the border property. We can also control the space between our cells, known as cell padding, with the padding property. To space out our rows and make our table more readable, we can use the margin property. But we're not limited to these basics. CSS is a powerful tool that allows us to get creative with our tables. For instance, we could alternate the background colors of our rows using the nth child selector. This can make a long table easier to read. We can even add a hover effect. This means that when a user's cursor hovers over a row, the color of that row changes. This can be done using the hover pseudo-class. Let's also not forget about responsiveness. As web developers, we want our tables to look good on all devices. We can use media queries to adjust the style of our table based on the screen size of the device viewing it. In short, CSS gives us the power to transform our plain HTML tables into visually engaging elements that enhance the user experience. You can experiment with different styles, colors, and layouts until you find the perfect look for your table. With CSS, the possibilities for styling your HTML tables are endless. So go ahead and let your creativity shine through your tables. Let's summarize what we've covered. HTML tables, represented by the element which adds a caption to your table. And remember, with the power of CSS, you can customize your table's appearance to suit your specific needs. So, don't be afraid to experiment and create tables that are both functional and visually pleasing. That's all for today's tutorial on HTML tables. Keep practicing, and you'll be a pro in no time.